Hello, Green Tree family. We're the Denckhoffs. We've got Libby, Sarah, Michael, Grace, Josh, and John. This week, as we continue our way of the manger, we're looking at the story of the star and the wise men. Through this story, we see how God reveals the coming Messiah through the messages in the natural world around us. Are we watching? Would we have noticed that star? Would we have followed it? What is it that God is pointing us toward this Christmas season? 18 years ago at Green Tree's Christmas Eve service, we stood on the stage at Westminster Christian Academy with our 5-week-old daughter, Grace. I had just been diagnosed with cancer earlier that year, and after surgery and months of treatment, I was given a clean bill of health and a new daughter. Lighting the Advent candle at the Christmas Eve service that year was about the very real and tangible ways we saw the Lord working through our circumstances. But it was also about the eternal promise that He makes to all of us. That same hope that led the wise men to follow the star across the sky that night, 18 years later, we are here again, celebrating the way God has sustained us, grown us, and blessed us in ways we couldn't have imagined all those years ago, and the continued hope in what is still to come.
Just like our younger selves, we're waiting to see what comes next. When will this pandemic be over? Can we gather as a church soon? What will school and college and work look like when it's all over? What will life look like in 6 months or a year? All those years ago, the people of God were also waiting for the coming of the Messiah, the promised one who would rescue God's people. They waited for 400 years while God sent messages through people, prophecies, and even nature to tell of the coming of His Son. Finally, in Matthew chapter 2, God uses a simple star in the night sky to proclaim the birth of the Savior they had waited for.
Matthew chapter 2, verses 2 through 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. He had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law. He asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written.
But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him."
After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose and went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route.
In order to accomplish His big plan, God used the star to communicate with the wise men. Even nature is a part of God's story of love and healing from the brokenness in the world. We might consider stars as everyday elements in the night sky, but in this case, God was using it for a special purpose, to lead the wise men to the Savior that all of Israel was waiting for.
What is God's invitation for us this season? As we wait for Jesus' return, are we paying attention to what God is doing? And where is He calling us? It might mean slowing down in our days, pausing to really look at what's around us and noticing the presence and the needs of others. It could be as simple as a text or a phone call to someone we've lost touch with in this crazy, busy life. In the middle of this pandemic, how are we looking for God's extraordinary signs of love in our ordinary days? And how can we focus our eyes on what God is doing right now in the middle of what seems lost and messy? This week, we challenge you to be like the wise men who follow the star. See God in the world around you. Go on a walk. Talk to a neighbor. Put down your phone and remember that God is in the details of the world around us. Let's be people who are always watching to see where He leads us. Remember that God is at work in your life right now, the same way He was at work in our family all those years ago when we stood here and couldn't begin to imagine the details of the story He had written for us. We may not know the timing or the details, but let's find the messages that remind us of His love and His saving grace this season. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here and share this message. We love you so much, Green Tree family, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas from the Denckhoffs!
Was that cheesy? I don't think that was cheesy enough.